The book magnet tutorial is finally here. Now, I'm going to break this video down into 6 parts to make it super easy to navigate. Instructions are always going to be written out on the left-hand side, and anything I mention you're going to need will be linked in the caption. Now, I do highly recommend getting yourself a cutting mat, a quilting square, and a rotary cutter. But if you don't have access to those things, you can definitely do this with a cutting board, a regular ruler, and some scissors. In terms of magnets, I have tried them all and I highly recommend getting the ceramic. They're heavy duty and they will definitely work through a variety of thicknesses of chipboard, which I'm showing you here. You can recycle a cereal box, that's what I do, it is the perfect thickness. Your writing utensil is just for measurements, so it really doesn't matter what you're using. You'll see me use my Tombow mono drawing pens, but those are expensive and it's definitely not necessary. Additionally, if you want to draw on your page edges, you can do that with markers. I suggest Copics, but again, expensive and not necessary. Adding tabs is totally optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want it. And the book cover stickers. And yes, I have fully incorporated a tutorial into this, don't worry. You are going to need some additional pieces of sticker paper as well. I just use scraps here. Again, totally optional. If you want a leather book, adhesive faux leather works great for this. I cannot stress the importance of this, especially if you're recycling something like a cereal box. Square off your edges first to ensure that you're working with straight edges. I would say that you could probably get 4 to 6 book magnets per cereal box if you're mindful on how you're cutting. For each book magnet, you're going to need 6 total pieces. 2 pieces are going to be 2¼ inches by 3½ inches. 2 pieces are going to be 1/2 inch by 3½ inches, and 2 pieces are going to be 1/2 inch by 2¼ inches. While I'm filming this tutorial, I am doing 3 book magnets, so you'll see me triple the pieces, and that is just my recommendation. If you're going to be making multiple of these book magnets, definitely cut out multiple sets at the same time. It's just going to make your life so much easier. Also, don't be like me. If you're using a rotary cutter, put the safety guard on when you're not using it. Another tip if you're using a rotary cutter with a quilting square, downward pressure is your best friend. I don't think you guys can realize just how hard I'm pushing down on both the quilting square and the rotary cutter to get a clean cut. If you could only cut one thing straight here, let it be your pages. The covers, you can kind of get away with it if your edges are not totally straight, but those pages, when you're putting them between 2 covers, you will see a gap. So put extra care into making sure these are a perfect 1/2 inch. You're going to notice here that I accidentally don't cut one of the 1/2 inch by 3½ inch pieces. You do need 2, not 1. And then additionally, on one of those 2 pieces, you're going to trim off just about 1/8 of an inch, a very small amount. And this difference is going to make the pages look a little bit inset to the cover. Don't worry about doing this to the smaller 1/2 inch by 2¼ inch pieces. You'll trim those as you're assembling to ensure that there's a perfect fit. Again, after you're done cutting everything, each book magnet should have 6 pieces. We are going to start assembling our book magnets, starting with the book covers. You're going to take 1/2 piece of sticker paper and 3 of our pre-measured pieces. Those pieces are both of the 2¼ by 3½ inch pieces, as well as one of the 1/2 inch by 3½ inch pieces, and that's going to be the uncut one. That one is going to be your book spine. Now I'm about to show you a close-up here, but those pieces are not directly up against one another. You're going to leave the smallest of gaps to allow it to bend. Trim away excess, but try to make sure that you're keeping at least like a 1/2 inch border. It's going to make it a lot easier to fold it over. On this next edge here, you'll see that I cut it a little bit too close. That was not fun to try to fold that over. As well, you're going to need to trim those corners, not all the way down to the cover, but you're just going to take a little bit off. This allows it to fold over without being bulky. The best way that I've found to do this is use the cover itself to help fold that edge over. That way you're going to end up with a clean, crisp edge. Once you're done that, you can pick it up and you can fold your spine. It's going to naturally bend where those gaps were. Now to construct our book pages, taking half a piece of sticker paper, you're going to take our remaining 3 pieces and you're going to go short piece, long piece, short piece. And that long piece in the middle is the one that we trimmed. Just like our cover, don't put those pieces right up against one another. You do need a gap to allow it to bend. Trim away any excess, fold it over, you can pick it up, bend at those natural bending points, and then I highly recommend for both the edges as well as the cover to reinforce these with packing tape. I don't show it here, but if you want drawn on edges or sprayed edges, after the packing tape, add additional sticker paper, either that you can draw on or that you've printed on, and you can do that step. Also, I didn't do the faux leather cover showing that because I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. It turned out fine, so if you want to try that, I recommend it, but I'm going to show you now how to add those pages. Taking some hot glue, you're going to put that on the long side of our pages. That is the 3.5-inch side, and just a very small amount. We're going to reinforce it after. This is just to get it to stick. You're going to line that up to our 3.5-inch side of our cover, and again, you're going to inset this just by a really small amount. You can see it here. When reinforcing those walls with hot glue, be generous. Add a ton. You don't want this to come undone. Now, with our shorter side, like I said, we're going to trim them as we assemble. We can see where that fold mark is. Take some scissors and just trim away a small amount bit by bit until you are perfectly lined up. Reinforce that wall. Do it on both sides. Time to add our magnets, and trust me when I say that I have tried a bunch of different options here. Ceramic magnets are by far the best option. They're cost effective, they're very strong, and they're heavy to help your magnets stay up. When you're putting these together, 1 magnet per book at a time. Do a large amount of hot glue, stick it in, and do not even attempt to put that second magnet until that is fully dry. I can promise you that these magnets will try to migrate and stick together, and it will make a total mess of the inside. You could probably get away with just doing 1 magnet per book, but I do recommend doing 2. It just makes it that much stronger. Before closing these up, you definitely could mark which is the front cover and the back cover, though if you're using ceramic magnets, you can definitely feel the weight on the back cover. You're going to close these up with a small amount of glue. You don't want this to ooze onto your pages, so be careful with this, and then you're going to close it over and hold it tight until dry. Personally, this is where I'm stopping for the leather book. I'm not going to add anything else. I like it as it is, but for the other 2, they're getting covers. The program that I use for this is Canva, and my template size is that of a regular piece of paper, so 8.5 by 11. I can almost guarantee that 99% of the time you are not going to find a full cover online. This here, the 4th wing one that I got a lot of comments about, this is 3 covers edited together to make it look like it is one large cover. Now I've already done one, but I will show you how I do the second one. Also, the spine on the fake mate here, couldn't find one, so I just made one. It's a lot easier than you'd think. First things first, create yourself a template. So this is the exact same sizes that we measured out, 2.25 inches by 3.5 inches, with that spine being a 1/2 inch by 3.5 inches. Just take a regular box out of elements, size that out, and put it together. This is just showing that this is the only picture that shows the fake mate spine, which is actually just a post from Lana Ferguson herself. This is just to say that you can definitely just make it work. Now that we have our template, first things first, front cover. This is going to be the easiest to find. I recommend grabbing this from Goodreads, specifically the Kindle edition. That is the highest resolution. Copy and paste that image in and then adjust it to your template. The reason why we have that template in place is that when you put a cover over top of it, it will snap into place. Moving on to the back cover, sometimes you can get lucky and find this on Amazon, though for specific editions, it is quite difficult. I pretty much solely rely on people's pictures of the back of the book. Sometimes the author will have it on their website, though you can just make it work with a photo of the back of a book. This is good to note, especially if you own that book. Again, we're gonna copy and paste it in, crop it as necessary, and then plop it into our template. As you can see, the color match here is not great, so we're gonna work to fix that. There are three main ways that you can go about fixing this color. The first being Canva filters. So under edit photo there, see if any of these work. Sometimes they do, I would say most of the time they don't. Another option, which I barely ever use, is gonna be an overlay. So putting in a box, marking down that transparency, picking a color, seeing if that works. Most of the time, I'm gonna go into edit photo and then just manually adjust everything. Once I'm happy with this, I can go in and make any final adjustments to the front or back cover. Personally, I don't really like having barcodes unless they're perfectly aligned, so I'll put it in a box and I'll color match that to the back cover and just cover it up. Once you're happy with this, it is time to move on to the spine. And if you had a hard time finding a back cover, you're gonna have almost an impossible time finding a spine that works. This comes down to the angle of which the picture was taken, as well as just making it fit. As you can see here, there isn't really a way for me to fit all this text in at the size that I need it, so I just decide I'm gonna make my own. Making a spine is a lot easier than you would think. Color match it to your front or back cover, add in text, and you're just gonna pretty much go through fonts, adjust your letter spacing until you find ones that match. Obviously, you're not gonna get a perfect match on the font, but you can get pretty close. I would say this is pretty spot on, and with that color matching tool, you can make something that looks exactly like the original. Calligraphy fonts are definitely harder to match, but you can find something that's pretty close. If there's an additional decal you need, find that under elements, and I would say we have a pretty close match here. Once you're happy with this, you can download this as PDF print, and we're gonna move on to printing our covers. Make sure when you're buying sticker paper that you buy the correct type for your printer. I have an inkjet printer, so I have inkjet sticker paper. Additionally, I have an Epson EcoTink 2850. I could not recommend that thing more. And when I'm printing here, I am printing US letter borderless. If you don't have borderless capabilities, that is fine. Just make sure your scaling is correct. After printing them, I do recommend letting them dry for a minute or two, then cutting them out, and then we can add them to our assembled book magnets. I do have a few tips and tricks to make this process a lot easier. First, only peel back a small portion of your cover until you are lined up. Now, this first technique leads to a little bit of a mess up, so I don't fully recommend it. I'm just holding this in the air willy-nilly and I am peeling it into place. What ends up happening is the back cover is not fully lined up. Personally, I don't really care. This is the back magnet that's going to be stuck to the whiteboard or on your fridge, wherever you're putting this thing. It's not a huge deal, but I do fix it on the second sticker and you'll see how I do this differently. Starting off the exact same way, this time we're going to put the book magnet and the cover up against the work surface. This helps make sure that everything is lined up, and I will say this book magnet turned out pretty much perfectly. If you do wind up making a mistake, it's really not a big deal. You could always print a new cover and just put it on top. There was a slight amount of excess just overhanging that back edge, so as you see here, I am just trimming it off, but you don't have to. You can always just fold that over. If you don't want tabs on these guys, they're completed, but obviously if you want tabs, just keep watching. For tabs, I recommend picking 3 colors per cover and try to make them contrasting colors. You'll see here with Flawless, I end up picking 3 pinks that are all pretty similar in color, and when it's up on my whiteboard, I can barely tell that there's a difference. Cut 3 to 4 small pieces from each tab to a max of about 10. I would say more than 10, it starts to look a little chaotic. Less than 10, there are some gaps. Using needle nose tweezers is definitely the play here. It's a lot easier to maneuver these small pieces, add glue, and add them to the exact place you want them on your book edge. These tabs will stick with the smallest amount of glue, so definitely don't overdo that. And with that, the book magnets are finished. If you end up making these, please tag me in them, follow me on social media, and if you'd like more videos like this, subscribe and like this video.